So basically George reached out, and you'll learn a little bit about us here in a moment. And in my past life, I did a lot of this kind of speaking because I worked in retail management. And I loved this part of my job. I loved standing up in front of a group of people and coaching and training. And I don't do it much anymore. So I was like, heck yeah, this is going to be fun. So here we are. And basically, I don't know if you read the email that George sent out. Did anybody read the email? That was a lot of information about us. It was slightly uncomfortable. Great. If you read it, I'm glad. I kid. But who we are, we'll start there. My name is Melly, short for Melissa. And this is Matt, short for Matthew. Melly and Matt sounded cuter than Melissa and Matthew when I decided how we would brand ourselves. So that's really the story behind that. I am originally from Boston, Massachusetts. I've been in Naples 7 years now. We are coming into 2019 will be our third full year in business. So these past 2 years have been filled with a lot of challenges and growth and learning, and it's been amazing. How did I land myself in photography? I think is an important thing, probably. I worked, like I mentioned, in retail management. I worked for Best Buy for 7 years. So I started off when I was 16 years old selling cameras when they were still, I remember when the Sony CyberShot S100, I think it was, came out. It was like $500, and it was a 5.1 megapixel, and it was like all the rage. And I remember thinking, man, this is cool. And gosh, like just the advancement has been crazy. So I was at Best Buy for 7 years. I was at Microsoft for 1 year. And I've done a lot of work with children. I've done a lot of things in between, but at heart, I am certainly an artist and an entrepreneur. So a couple of years ago, Matt and I have been married 3 years. Matt's nodding his head. Those three things are very true.
For sure. I'm still awake and listening.
Yeah.
I've heard this story before, so I'd like to remind her I'm with her.
I tend to speak a little bit more, I think, but I'll try and remember to let him in.
She lets me chime in every once in a while. That's good.
So 3 years, we've been married 3 years, together 4 years, and about 2.5 years ago I said, can I start this business? I want to see how this goes. So I went to school for photography up at Boston University. They used to have a sister school called the Center for Digital Imaging Arts. And when I was in about years 5 with Best Buy, I realized I want to do this forever, but I know I'm really good at it. Let me find something else I'm good at. And honestly, I don't even know how it happened. Just all of a sudden I was in this program, 2-year accelerated program through Boston University, where you skipped all your general education, you just went straight to digital photography. And I knew I wanted to do that because I already knew I had the eye, the creativity. I had always been told, man, you take really nice pictures, that's beautiful, you've got a great eye. You know, whatever that meant, I didn't know at that time. But I knew that if I was going to try to do it as a job, I wanted to know what the heck I was doing. So this program allowed me to learn everything. We did weddings, we did studio, we did flash, and I learned what I liked and what I didn't like. And then what we didn't learn, because it was art school, was really how to run a business. So I left there and thought, well, that was fun, but I don't actually know what to do with it, and I don't really want to be a starving artist. So I didn't do too much with it. I just did part-time shoots here and there for family and friends. And then a couple of years ago, it was on my heart. I said, I got to do this. I can do it. I don't know how, but will you let me? Because Matt will tell you his story now here in a moment, and I'm blessed that we were able to. I said, I don't know when I'm going to turn money, how we're going to turn a profit or anything like that, but if you can keep the roof over our heads and food in our mouths, I promise to try really hard to make it work. And here we are a couple years later, it's working, so that's very exciting. And Matt will tell you a little bit about himself.
I think maybe other than proposing, the day when I said, yeah, you can try to have your own photography business and turn that into something that's going to help sustain our new little family. Those are two of the most scary moments maybe in my whole life. It's a lot of commitment. It's a big unknown. Many of you, if not all of you in the room, have been married maybe once or twice or more, and for many, many years. And some of you are about to hit the 50-year mark. We were chatting, some of us, before the meeting started, and so it's quite an adventure. The marriage part of the adventure has been going really well. The business part of the adventure it's still scary. but it's working and it's going in the right direction, so it's been a lot of fun and very exciting. I grew up down here. My family moved down here from Chicago in the mid-'80s. So I've been here since about '85, and then I went away to school in upstate New York and got a bachelor's in philosophy, which also doesn't really help in the business world. What do you do with that? When are you going to use that? And I like to say that I use it all the time. And so I came home from college and, of course, had no idea what to do with myself with a bachelor's in philosophy. And so I had some little odd jobs here and there, and I started a little business of my own and ran that for a little while. And then someone said, what were you good at when you were a kid? And I said, well, I was always good at math. And this woman who was a career teacher said, maybe you should go back and engage your mind again. Go back, do something with your brain. And I said, okay. So my bachelor's in philosophy and we went back to school. I went up to FGCU and took a couple classes. And 3 years later, I left there with a master's in applied mathematics. What do I know? I'm winging it, right? So I don't know. So I went back at 30 and I got my master's and came out, and FGCU let me teach while I was getting my degree. And I found that I really enjoyed teaching. And so I applied, and after a year, a spot opened up, and I became a full-time faculty member in the math department at FGCU. So I've been there. I started taking classes in '09, and here we are 2018. I'm still there, and I love it. I get to go to work every day, and it's more like I'm going to go play and do something that I really love. And when I'm not at that job, I've got this other job with this great gal here, whom I love and adore, and we get to be creative, and it engages the other side of the mind, and it's been a lot of fun, and it's maybe literally the best of both worlds. It's been very cool. And all the way along, ever since college, I was just sort of an enthusiast as far as photography was concerned. From in high school, I used a film camera and took a photography class, and then got my first point and shoot. And then before I went to Europe for the first time, my dad got me an early birthday present, and he got me my first DSLR, which was like a 12 megapixel camera, DSLR with interchangeable lenses, and so I went and I took, in 3 weeks in Europe, I took 1,400 photos. 1,400! Your phones, some of you have 23,000 pictures on your phone now. That's 1,400, so many. But before I went to Europe, I wanted to make sure I knew how to use this camera. And so instead of going and spending 2 years at a school doing this dedicated program and taking all the classes, I opened up the manual that came with my camera, and I read about this setting. What is that called? What's that do? And I thought, okay. So I take a picture, and then I change that setting, and I take another picture, and change that setting, take another, and I just see what it does. What's the result of changing this setting? And I did that through the whole manual, and then I went and I took a bunch of pictures in Europe, came back.
How long did that process take you?
I did over the summer. Yeah, I had a part-time job working in a library, as a matter of fact. And so when I had some downtime, or I took a little break, I'd pull out my camera and the little booklet, you can imagine, with a tiny little font, and started scrolling through the settings. And so that's how I learned a lot about photography, was just by sort of trial and error. And then after we got married and started the business and it came time to upgrade equipment, guess what I did before I bought my next new upgraded camera? I read the manual before I bought it. She thought I'm insane. I'm spending my evenings reading the manual on my phone, online, for the camera that I don't even own yet. And really it's been a lot of trial and error. So some of us were talking about the new phones that we have, or whether you're using an iPhone or an actual camera, or even your iPad. Playing around with the different settings and exploring, and sometimes going in and reading the manual is part of the process of figuring out some of the cool things that this technology can do. And I was always a PC user growing up. Can I say that here? I know. Careful. It's okay. It's protecting me. once we upgraded our equipment, cameras, and decided to pull the trigger and go full steam ahead with the photography business, Melissa went to school for this and had so much experience with editing and the hardware and different softwares and such. She said, hey, when I was in school, I was told that this is the thing. This is the tool that you need, other than a camera. This is the other ingredient. And I said, hey, if the pros who taught you said that this is the piece of hardware that I need, and you've been using yours to the point where it's about ready to light on fire, you've been using it so much, I said, I guess this is what I have to have. And I made the switch, and for what we do, this piece of hardware has not let me down once yet. And I'm telling you, we sit there on the couch, and we were up until 2 o'clock in the morning. We just burn these things.
Not making this presentation.
Not making
that
a
was already
presentation,
done.
of course. But we edit and edit and edit and edit and edit, and we've got external hard drives hooked up to it, sometimes 2 at a time, and we just work these machines. And I have been, as a guy who grew up as a PC user, desktop and laptop, to switch over and do so much work on a portable piece of hardware like this, I have been very, very impressed. And all of a sudden, Apple has become a big part of my life, and in a really great way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
and here we are.
Yay.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, so let me take a quick survey. How many people here are photo enthusiasts at any level? Okay.
Oh, great.
And how many people have a DSLR? Have a digital SLR? Okay. MacBook Pro? Okay. Awesome. Very cool. I assume all iPhone users in the room? Yes.
Do not leave.
Yeah. We gotta go again, sorry. So yeah, I'd like to get that out of the way first, I guess. We are actually Android users.
Oh.
That's the one piece of Apple equipment that we do not use. And that's kind of it. I'm not gonna get into the whole long story as to why, but I actually kind of think that's cool because stuff still works so well cross-platform. Of course, there's some stuff that I wish was easier. I could just, airdrop something from my phone to my computer. Maybe I can't do that as easily, but I can still do so much with it, and they still integrate really well with each other, so I like that. But yeah, we are actually Android users on the phone. So anyway, that's who we are.
How did you meet?
I'm sorry?
How did you meet?
Great question. He was my math professor. At the age of 26, I decided to go back to school. So like I mentioned to you, the school I went to up in Boston got me this wonderful certificate from Boston University that looks very real and legitimate, and it is legitimate, but it wasn't a bachelor's. And I still felt like I wanted to have my bachelor's. You never know what you want to do in the future, and I felt like I was in a place where I was going to learn better. I tried to go to traditional college straight out of high school, and it didn't go very well for me. So I went back to school at FGCU, and
You sat in the front row of one of my math classes.
I was freaking out. First time doing math in 8 years, and I was never really good to begin with, so I got tested into the remedial math program. I thought, oh my God, I have to pay attention. I have to do this really well so I can get on to the next thing. And I sat right front and center, and he walks in, and he made some sort of snide, that sarcastic comment in the first minute, and I thought he was hilarious. A lot of the 18-year-olds don't always get his sense of humor, but I thought he was hilarious. And then he smiled, and then I was like, oh no, I have a crush on my math teacher. And about a year and a half later, we were married, so that's how we met. Great question. We should really put that at the beginning of the story, I guess. So what we do, very small smattering here of what we do, a lot more of it up here for you guys to touch and see later, but in a nutshell, we are not your average photographers, and we don't want to be. There are a lot of people out there who do take beautiful pictures and know how to, whether they read the manual or not, or they're just born this generation, they know how to use a camera. And our phones do a lot too, so that's great. But we are about capturing emotion. We specialize in people, and if you read our reviews online, the thing that I think we're most proud of is how comfortable we make people feel in front of the camera. I would say 90% of our clients come and say, I hate having my picture taken, it's not been a good experience, I don't like how I look, I don't like my ears, I don't like this. It's always this negative thing. And for me, I want to flip that on its head, and I want to say, no, you're beautiful, you gotta love yourself, let's practice some self-love here, let's get some gorgeous photos, let's just have some fun. Why wouldn't you want to look back? Now, my parents didn't do a fantastic job of documenting my childhood, and I was really cute, so it makes me very sad. I had Shirley Temple curls, and I had these dimples that sort of left me, and there's like one photo album of me when I was a kid, and you know.
Were you the first child?
No, I was the second, and so there are more pictures of my brother. I was going to say that photo album has more pictures of him than of me. But, you know, I never really thought much of it, but now that I think back, I think about it, I think I'm so passionate about creating these stories for people to be able to look back on and have these legacy pieces for a lifetime, because I didn't have it. I don't have it for myself, and I wish that I did. So that's a big reason of why I do what I do and the way that I do it. And when I say the way that we do it, in this digital age, I would say a solid 8 out of 10 photographers, if you go Google or you make some phone calls, how's that process going to look? You're probably going to pay a few $100s, and they're probably going to take you somewhere for a half hour to an hour, take some decent photos, and then upload them to an online gallery and give you a password, and you can download them and you can do what you wish with them. That is not what we do. We create art. We create an experience. So from the beginning to the end, we're going to help you choose what you're going to wear, where you're going to do it, what you want to do with these images, what kind of wall art can we create for you, what kind of albums can we create for you, how are you going to give this to the next generation to live on. So that means that I put a lot of responsibility on ourselves to create some really cool stuff, which means I need a powerful machine that does everything I need to do. And like Matt said, these things work. I work on a lot of different softwares. I do a lot of stuff at once. And he jokingly said to Jim here earlier, Melissa works 26 hours a day. It's a problem. Sometimes I think to myself that I get to the end of the night and the thing like really does sound like it's about to take off. It sounds like a plane. It's like, the fans are just like, give me a break. And I'm like, come on, you've got it in you. But give it a break. But these things really kill. So what we do, we specialize in people, like I said. So we do specialize in weddings. That was kind of how we started together. I said, gosh, let's shoot a wedding together. That would be fun. And it was amazing. By the way, the fact that I spent $25,000-ish on photography school and this guy read the manual and literally I can't tell who took a picture, it's really frustrating to me. But that also tells me I know we were meant to do this thing together because we have the same eye. It's really freaky. So that's pretty cool. I'd like to show you a quick video that kind of speaks you through what we do, and you can, like I said, afterwards, please come up here and have a look at all the products that we have here. The thing is, cliche or not, life is short. Moments quickly become memories. Our job is to catch the moments that tell the story.
You make it out.
Your story. Your job is simply to be yourself. Let go. Engage your senses. Laugh. Think. Cry. Feel. Love. The human connection inspires us to create images that make you feel something, that make you smile and fill you with gratitude. We don't just come as photographers, we come as friends. So sorry if you couldn't hear that all, but basically we try and make very pretty products with the pretty pictures that we take and that were inspired by people and the connection that people have with one another. So, where are we? Keynote. All right. So, where we do it. These are some of the places that we've been. Anyone want to take a guess for that top left?
New England.
Yeah, New England. This fall. New England, that was New Hampshire. How about that top right? Take a guess.
Naples.
No?
Looks like it with the catamarans there, though, that's for
Yeah,
sure.
that's a good guess.
Yep.
True.
What part of New England?
New Hampshire. Tamworth, New Hampshire. This top right is Honolulu, bottom left is Cancun, and the bottom right is, could have been a golf course here, I suppose, but it's Arizona, so had to throw another one in there. These were all taken on our drone. I am not the drone pilot. Matthew is the drone pilot.
That's because I read the manual. She's not going to read the manual.
You're
I got that job.
artist through and through, no manual for me. I flew the drone once. I went up, it was too fast. I came back down, and I was like, all right, cool. So I have the vision a lot of times for the shots that I want to see happen, and I artistically direct, and then he makes it happen, and then he's got his own vision. So that's kind of a cool, fun thing. We're actually, I think, I haven't confirmed this, I haven't gone around and asked, because there are a lot of photographers down here, but I'm pretty sure we're the only professional photography team that has a drone that we use for photography. There are many videographers who do, but I believe we're the only ones for photo. Yes?
So are you loading like a $1,500 or $2,000 SLR onto a drone?
No, although that's possible, and there are, so most of the drones that we've ever seen photos of or commercials for have 4 propellers, right? They call them quadcopters.
Right.
So we have a DJI Mavic.
No, we have the Phantom 4
Phantom 4, and that has a camera that's built into it, which is very small and very light. It's got a very wide-angle lens on it, which allows me to capture these massive landscapes. The one in the bottom left from Cancun, I was probably only 12 feet off the ground, but we've got that image in our gallery printed at 70 by 40.
Wow.
And if you stand close enough to it, you feel like you're there in Cancun. I mean, the quality of the image and the very, very minimal distortion, and then you take it and you drop it into Photoshop or Lightroom, there's no distortion anymore. It's a very true image. There are octocopters that are used by like professional film crews that you can attach a more substantial camera to, but I don't even think any of those would actually take a camera that we own and essentially Velcro it or something, or attach it to it, because it would just be too heavy. You'd burn through the battery. But the Phantom 4 Pro that we have has on one battery probably a 20-minute fly time, and we've got a couple of batteries, and I've done a little bit of video work with it, but for the most part, we use it for shooting stills to get these really unique angles, and we're able to take the micro SD card out of there and put it in the adapter and throw it right into the laptop, and we get some great stuff that we can print at very large scale.
Do you have to get a special permit to have that drone up there?
In order to fly the drone for commercial purposes, you do have to have a drone pilot license, and so that's actually a portion of a legitimate pilot's license. So I did have to study a little bit and then go down to I went to the Naples airport into one of their annex buildings, and I sat for an exam where I had to be able to read maps and answer questions about how airplanes, flight patterns, and the like. So I did have to go through that process to get this license to fly commercially. As a recreational user, you don't have to do that. And one of the nice things about these high-tech drones that are now available for folks like us to just go and buy at the store, at Costco even, is that they have constant updates that are coming into the handheld part of the unit. So whenever you're on Wi-Fi, it'll prompt you and let you know that it wants to download something, and then push that to the drone itself so that it will not enter forbidden airspace. It won't fly over an unsafe height depending on where you are, which is really nice. Keeps us safe, keeps our equipment safe, keeps other aircraft safe. That's remarkable.
Well, what if one drone comes over my house and is taking pictures of my backyard?
Yeah.
I mean...
I say shoot
are
the
there
thing
rules and
down.
regulations?
Those are privacy concerns, and I think that you've got valid concerns there.
Yeah.
There are parts of the section 107 something that say that you're not supposed to fly it over other people. Even if we take it to the beach and we're using it to take a photo like this, I do my absolute best to not fly it over other people, unless I ran over and asked for permission or something. Safety but I think privacy is a great concern, and I don't think, I have flown ours over other people's property, you know, messing around in the backyard and just sort of flying around up over the treetops and experimenting and stuff, but I don't use it to peep. But somebody probably does, and that's, you know, that's like, I don't know what you should do though, you know.
They're used a lot for real estate photography, so if you have any houses near you that are for sale, who knows, maybe it's taking a photo of their backyard or just of the neighborhood or something like that, you know. I don't know, but they get used a lot now for real estate.
Yep.
So, do you have a question, George?
Yeah, I was just curious who made the camera that was in the drone.
It's the DJI
Okay.
brand, yeah, their optics and everything. So our drone setup is about 3,000 or 3,500. We sprung for the big guy because I wanted to be able to print that at a 70 by 40 or bigger. And if I want to be able to do that, I got to make sure I've got the resolution to do it. So that's.
What was the resolution of the drone camera?
Oh, I mean.
It shoots 4K video.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
And it's 20 megapixel,
I think
to say.
20.
Megapixel is like the last thing that I even really care about at this point. Everything is really good enough for it, but in the drone world, I needed to make sure it was good enough. So.
And it's very stable even if it's windy or something. It just self-levels and auto-corrects. And
In your experience overseas, are there additional concerns, restrictions, liability?
When we used it in Cancun, I did a little bit of looking online and did not find that there were any governmental restrictions.
When we went to Peru, we had to pay a tax on the way in. We paid like $180 in tax. They like wrote it on a piece of paper, put it in a binder, and said, when you come back to fly out, come to us. And I was like, I'm never going to see that money again. But we did get it back. So they had to have a system in place, but it was very kind of convoluted. So each country is different. You just got to read up on it before you
And in
go.
Peru at Machu Picchu, we were not allowed, they're checking bags
Correct, at
to
Machu
make sure
Picchu,
that
you
you
cannot.
weren't taking it, because otherwise everyone and their brother would be taking their drone to fly over Machu Picchu. It'd be annoying to hear all that buzzing overhead. So there are certain pieces of property where you can't take it. We've shot weddings that are near Naples Airport, and I try to take the drone up, and it says you can't go over 30 feet.
30.
Because all these satellites are watching the drone, and it has the maps that are downloaded into the drone itself, it knows where it's not allowed to fly and what any kind of additional constraints are.
And it'll automatically not fly
It
higher.
automatically sets a ceiling, yep. It did the same thing when we were in Boston by the waterfront, because the airport was just across the waterway. It said, nope, 40 feet's your max. Otherwise, I could take it up until, 400, I think is what it is. Unless you hack it and override it, and then you can take it up until it turns into an ice cube.
So, long story short, we do work everywhere and here as well, obviously. Duh, as the kids, I don't know, kids still say duh, but. Why do we do what we do? Well, you can see I've got a passion for storytelling, but a big part of what we do also is we do give back to the community, and that's super important to us. So 5% of every sale that comes to us goes back to one of our 4 nonprofit organizations that we consider part of our family. That is called the Kanjani Project, the Wellfit Girls, Cancer Alliance of Naples, and Eva's Closet. If after you'd like to hear anything more about any of these, I'd be happy to share with you. But we opened a gallery space earlier this year, which I didn't really mention. All of this process that I'm telling you, where you do a consultation to help you get your picture set up, then we do the shoot, obviously, and get the images taken. Then from there, there's a whole process to get them edited and make them look as beautiful as they are, and cropping and all that artistic stuff. And then we do what we call our viewing and ordering session, and that's where we reveal the images. And if we've got time, I've got a sample and I can show you how I reveal to families what their images look like. And then we sit together in our gallery space and we look at them and say, what are our favorites? What do we want to do with them? Do we want to blow this one up? Do we want to do an album? And we collaboratively create art, basically, which is really cool and a lot of fun. So at our gallery space, we've started to do events as well. Mostly, my goal is to raise as much money as I can for these folks and raise as much awareness as I can for them because they're all near and dear to our heart for a few different reasons. So That's a big part of what we do.
Would you like to mention the hardware used during the viewing session at this point?
That's what we're about to get into.
All right.
So how Apple helps us do all this stuff, we're going to kind of live on this slide for a second. I'm going to sit because I'm going to probably start going into some of these softwares. But so hardware for Apple, we have 2 MacBook Pros. You see both of them here. This is the last generation. You can still buy this exact unit as of at least a few months ago. This is the last unit that still uses USB 3.0. So all of the new ones. Anybody here have the new with the touchpad or the touch bar thing? Yeah, great. I want one, but I'm just mad. I'm just mad every time Apple updates something and makes us need adapters for things. So the fact that it's only Thunderbolt is a little frustrating because all of our external hard drives, this, by the way, if anybody's wondering, is an external hard drive. Why is it stuck to my laptop's case? Because often I go to move and then I will forget that it is plugged in and behind and it unplugs, and that is very bad. We do not like when that happens. I say bad words and then he says to me, why don't you just Velcro it to your case? And I said, why don't you just Velcro it to my case? So he did.
So now all of our external hard drives that we use, I've got a little, you can even see the little tab on mine. I've got a little Velcro patch on here. And all of our external hard drives, we can just stick them right to the lid so that they don't fall off and she doesn't curse like a drunken sailor all the time.
On my last case, I had 2. I had another one on this side because I often do have 2 set up using, multiple kind of different things. But so MacBook Pros, why do I have everything on my external hard drive? Because I've got hundreds of thousands of files that I'm not going to bog down the actual laptop to have all those files on there. So I have everything live in a very organized file structure on these external hard drives, which I format for Mac. And then I've got, at this moment, we're so busy. I've got like 3 or 4 that I'm currently working off of, depending on what project I'm working on. I'm unplugging and I'm replugging, and so I will one day figure out probably a better way to do that. But at the moment, that's what we do here. 2 MacBook Pros. We've got 1 iMac at our gallery space. I call it a gallery, by the way, because we only, as of last month, have studio space now. So we actually will start shooting in there. But for the last bit of the year, we opened in March, like I said. We were only doing viewing sessions. So I didn't want people to say, oh, you have a studio, and assume, oh yeah, we can go get a photo shoot done there, when we didn't do in studio. Now we do in studio as well.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah.
Any favorite type of hard drive?
Seagate is my personal favorite. Honestly, like, I'm a believer in some of these things that, like, it's like Canon and Nikon. You meet someone, they're like, what do you shoot with? And I'm like, Nikon. They're like, wow, we can't be friends, I'm Canon. I'm like, okay, it's fine, really. Canon comes out with some technology that's a smidge better than Nikon, and then 6 months later, this one does that, and they just keep leapfrogging each other. Seagate and Western Digital, for example, would be, I'd say, they're like the same thing. I had a Western Digital that didn't work out of the box like 8 years ago, and that was enough for me. I was like, well, I'm only using Seagate, so that was, my logic behind it. And I've never had, I think I've had, in 8 years, 1 Seagate that didn't work out of the box, but I've never had one of their hard drives fail on me, and I use them a lot. So we use mostly 2 terabyte and 4 terabytes. And we're currently setting up a server in the gallery that's going to have all of our everything centralized in one location, which is going to be really nice. But I do use Seagate. Lacey is big amongst a lot of my photographer and videographer friends. I feel like Lacey started Mac specific, very Mac specific, with their branding at least. I'm not sure, but I've never used them. I use Seagate. The only thing to note would be that when you purchase one of these, you do need to reformat it specifically for Mac. You can, and I have not looked into this enough because we don't have PCs, but you can format the hard drive to be both PC and Mac. We just need it for Mac. So that's how I format it. Yes?
Do you duplicate those, back them up, or put them in the cloud?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we do all of those things. So
what we're going to be doing is taking the images off of our cards from our camera, and for short-term immediate use, we'll be taking the images and putting them onto one of these portable external hard drives, which Melissa said is either 2 or 4 terabyte. And our data lives on those, and our software lives on the laptop, right on the MacBook. And as a result, that means that those external drives are spinning all the time because we're accessing the data that's on them all the time, and they're able to get that information to and from our computers fast enough that we can be editing the images on those external hard drives. The new server that I'm building at the gallery is also going to be using Seagate hard drives. They're not solid state, so they're the traditional spin, 7200 RPM. And it's going to be a bank of 4 drives that are each 8 terabyte. So the images will be on the portables. They'll be on that sort of desk drive server system. That server system is plugged directly into the router, hardwired into the router, and will be automatically backed up to a cloud. So it's going to be in 3 places. Our data will live in 3 places.
Currently it does, it's just not that simple. We're now simplifying. Yeah, so when we take it off if it's on the memory card and then it's on a hard drive, like let's say we have a day where we have like 4 shoots and I get home and I'm exhausted and it's midnight, but I want to get the cards off the, files off the card, at least I've got it in the card and I've got it on the hard drive. And then when I wake up, I'll then make sure that that gets backed up onto a second hard drive and then to the cloud. Workflow-wise, realistically, the cloud should be first, but it takes a long time. So it's
a lot of data.
It's a lot of data, and we're trying to also pare down and not. These raw files that our cameras give us are huge, so we don't want to keep so much information that we don't necessarily need. For a wedding, we keep all the raw files. For like family shoots and headshots and that kind of stuff, we don't need all of them. So we're still sort of perfecting our workflow, but we do always ensure that our stuff is backed up in multiple places.
Which cloud?
There's quite a few softwares out there. We use one called Backblaze, but to be honest, I haven't totally loved it. And so I just got a recommendation for another one from a friend that I think we're gonna probably switch over and try, called Crash Plan. But there's a ton of them. When I worked for Microsoft, I got like 1 million years of Microsoft Office included in my employeeship that I still have. And so you got, what was it,
Terabyte, I thought.
I don't know, you got a lot, I think it was a terabyte or more, of OneDrive storage, their cloud. And so for a long while, I was just backing everything to OneDrive, which was good, but that could only hold so much. Currently for like document sharing with my assistant, we have an assistant that works with us almost a year now. We do a lot of Google Drive sharing. Also not my favorite sharing platform, but basically I think I'm just very picky because there's no one software that I like the way that it fully works. So I have multiple things to do.
One of the nice things about the server that I'm building is, for starters, it's about this size. It's got 4 hard drives in it, and that's pretty, and a fan, and its own processor, which means the thing is always on. It's hardlined into the router. It's got its own processor, its own RAM, which means that we will be able to access it remotely from anywhere, web-based. So once I take our files and I put it onto that thing, I can access it as our own cloud. Which means even though it's going from now our own physical cloud that's sitting in our gallery, it's also being backed up to a real cloud, I guess, as real as a real cloud is. So it's sort of living on 2 servers, which is nice. So that redundancy, but also the fact that I have physical access to my own server now is a really nice option. And you can put them in series. So if we max it out, the one that I'm going to build is 48 terabytes or 32 terabytes. If we max that one out, I can buy another little 4-bay unit and run it over to it. That one will be less expensive because it doesn't have to have its own processor. And I can just individually slot in as I need them additional hard drives. But when we shoot a wedding, we come home with a total of, in an 8-hour wedding, between 3,000 and 4,000 images at 25 megs per image. So we need a lot of storage space. And the time that it takes to upload that to a cloud is extensive. But I can upload it onto my own cloud, on my own little server, considerably faster, which is nice. And then it can trickle up to the real cloud. Yeah.
I notice your images are sort of light and then saturated, which gives it a watercolor effect. What is your general editing process?
Wonderful question. So that was what I was going to hop into next. Is we've got an iPad and Apple TV, but we can hop back to how we use those later. Software-wise, 95% is done in Lightroom, Adobe Lightroom, and that is the standard among any professional photographer you speak with. Lightroom. That's what we use. And I've got it open, and I can show you a little bit of some before and afters and such if you'd like to see. I do some stuff in Photoshop as well. I have a little demo I can do for you if you're interested as well in that. But that is the process. So basically, the images come off of the workflow is they come off of the hard drive, and you know what? I'm just going to show you. What would be a good example? I mean, maybe these should be a good example, but let's go here. So because we shoot multiple cards, and then we have to sync them up to look at them by capture time, so I can see what he was shooting while I was shooting, and I'm looking at everything at the same time. What I do is I create what's called a pre-cull folder, culling being just choosing my favorite images. Weird word, I don't love it, but pre-cull. So what I do is I take our cards, pop them in, I put every single image into a pre-cull folder. This was a 3-hour wedding. It was kind of a different, more relaxed feel than normal, so we only had 1,500 images. I take them into a software called Photo Mechanic.
Photo what?
Photo Mechanic. And Photo Mechanic is a standard that was first started to be used with journalism, newspapers, like this is so that they can get all the data in it and all the tags and captions and stuff like that. It's very good for keywording and all that back-end stuff. The reason I use it for culling and why a lot of photographers use it for culling, you know, all your metadata here and stuff, which is cool too, or information, is because it's very, very fast. So I can go through these images super quickly, and I just have a very trained eye now that as I'm going, I hit T for tag, and I'll tag the ones that I want to keep. And then when I'm done going through all of them, all 1,500 or whatever it is, I rename them in this software, and then I send them over to Lightroom. You can rename in Lightroom, but without getting too complicated, it's not my favorite renaming process, so I try to do it before I put it in Lightroom. So I come into Photo Mechanic. I choose all of my tagged images that I love, and what it does is it creates this folder here, which I call Katie and Anthony Raw. So everything this is a basic file structure for pretty much any client, or wedding client, for example, and then it will continue to grow as we design albums, as they might request Christmas cards or something, then I organize out from that. But pre-cull, you will find in every single client folder, because that's where we put all of the images first. Then you'll notice that there's almost exactly double the items in RAW. So we went from 1,500 in pre-cull to 3,000 in RAW. It's because what Photo Mechanic does is it takes that RAW file, depending on what you're shooting on. That could be .nef, .cr2, there's also a couple of other, but those are the two main ones. And then it creates what's called an XMP file, which houses all of the information of that image. Don't ask me anything more specific than that, because I'm really not that technical. But that's what it does. So it creates this RAW folder, and then from that, I go into Lightroom. And in Lightroom, I create what's called a catalog. Who's used Lightroom before? Anybody? Oh, Lightroom is fantastic. Even if you're not professional, if you're using iPhoto, the capability and the simplicity of Lightroom after you just get a little bit used to it is just so worth it. It used to be $100. I do it through the cloud now, so I don't know what it is, or I do it through Adobe Creative Cloud, so you get all the other stuff, Photoshop, etc. But as a single thing, a single software, the value of it is tremendous. So anyway, I bring them in here, and then once I have all the ones that I want in here, I start to edit, and like, whatever, let's take this one as an example. Why not? So that's what it looked like on import, and this is a good example because I got rid of some people in the background. And then after, if you're looking over here, we can go through real quick. So first what I did was I synchronized my settings from a previous edit. So what I do is I take the first first image, and I edit it to what I think looks perfect. And then I synchronize everything else that's in that lighting setting, because we go through a lot of different light settings throughout the day. Maybe it's cloudy, maybe it's super bright, whatever. I synchronize those settings, and then I work on each image individually to perfect what it needs perfected. So I synchronize.
What do you do, copy and paste?
Synchronizing is essentially copying and pasting the previous modifications.
Right, there's a sync button to do it, but yeah, that's exactly what it is. The first thing I work on is the crop. Where do I want it? Was I going to lose some of her dress? Is the horizon straight? So obviously it took me a minute to figure that out. Then we clearly need to get rid of them. So I played around a bit until I got that perfect. A lot of this sometimes needs to be done, and sometimes if it's complex, removing people or smoothing happens in Photoshop, but a lot of it can happen in Lightroom. So I'm just clicking as I wipe. This is my history. I want to make sure it looks realistic, and you wouldn't know that there had been someone standing back there. So that's nice. And then I messed a little bit with, and these may not even show up there, but I boosted highlights a little bit, I boosted the exposure a bit, I cropped again, and then I finally exported it. So every photographer, I mean, we were just with a really good photographer friend who's been shooting here in town like 17 years now or something, last night, and he was, we're doing some, just being total nerds together, and he said, you know, it's just that there's nothing more subjective than what we do. And it's so true, because this is, I'm glad that you said light, bright, airy, basically whatever, that is us. We are light, bright, airy, organic. That is what I love that. I just think it's beautiful. And if you create something that you think is beautiful, there's enough other people out there who like what you like, and then that style is what they're attracted to, and then they come to you, and hopefully they appreciate your artistry and they want to work with you. I don't need every client. I need the ones who want to work with me. So that's I focus on just creating things that I love, and then the right people come to me, which has worked out nicely. Yes?
Do you enhance the color on that, or do you work with, what do you call it, contrast and?
Yeah, absolutely. So
All those?
Yeah, so this was the import, right? So this is the image when it first came in. And so the first thing I did was it went from this to this. Again, before, after. The way that I was able to do that was, I'm going to do that one more time. Look at these sliders over here. These are all called sliders. So when you bring an image in, all of the sliders have their little knobby thing in the middle. Very technical, a little knobby thing right in the middle. And then when you hit, I sync these settings, which I pasted from a different image, I click on it, they are all over the place now. So I have highlights are down, shadows are up, whites are up, blacks are up. There's a contrast slider. There's a lot that you can do over here. As I scroll down, there's additional highlights, etc. You can dive into every color. So for example, let's do orange. She's very orange. So watch what happens if I mess with the saturation.
Yeah.
So
you can make the sky more purple.
I could, yes, correct. I'm a minimalist at heart. I use very little, like, you'll go to the beach sometimes. I don't know if you've ever been to the beach when there's a photography session going on and they've got flashes and they've got 2 camera bodies on them, and I'm the one with 1 camera body on me who looks like I'm part of the family. There's 2 very different experiences going on. I want to mesh. I want the kids to want to come over and high-five me and love me and want to press the button on my camera, and I want to be in the moment. I don't want to be creating and contriving a moment. So I don't do a lot of that stuff. And then in post-processing, as we call it, in post, all of this editing, I really try to stay true to what people really look like. I mean, she is orange. What can you do about it? She just is a little orange. Sorry, yeah, she's tan. Let me actually go back so I didn't lose my real edit from that. This saves in real time too. So if you,
On the right-hand side, where you show the saturation slider?
sorry, I did. This one?
No, that one, part of that. One of the words that you mentioned was saturation. There are photographers who desaturate their images, so they pull some of the colors out so it looks a little bit older or a little bit maybe creamier or something. And that's a style. A lot of people use that style. We don't do it a lot. One of the only times that we do it, I would say, to a big extent, is if an image or a person ends up looking really orange because of the sun or an external lighting source or something like that. But otherwise, a lot of the modifications that we do are actually geared toward trying to keep the image pretty true. So we don't create purple skies, though we could, and especially with Lightroom, it would take a split second. You know, we could make it look really fanciful, but we try to use this particular tool to stay true to what was happening. Yeah.
So anyway, then we export from there and then send the client their files. But I want to jump out of here real quick to some of these operating system features that I use that I really love that I'm sure you guys probably know about. And if you don't, I would suggest you play with them because they're wonderful. Stickies. Who uses stickies? Yes, thank you. Stickies are the best. Stickies keep me organized. So stickies are literally like Post-it notes, and that's what these are right up here. So if I double click, they all open up. This is, I've got a to-do list, an edit list, and then Edie is our assistant. So I've got these different lists, and I come in here and I update them. And these you cannot share with people. That'd be cool if I could just share Edie's sticky with her, and then I could update it, and it would just automatically update in the cloud. But for my organization, I have these always hidden up here, and I've, you know, colored them like I saw fit, and I love that feature very much, and I use it very often. So I recommend that. I use obviously Finder is built in, which we all use, the Spotlight search, and then takes us to our Finder. Anybody else notice that sometimes Spotlight doesn't find something that you needed to find? Has that ever happened to anybody else? Yeah, don't lie, it happens to everybody. It's so frustrating, I don't understand why that happens. So I actually downloaded a third-party software called Alfred, which you can set your hotkey to whatever you want. Mine's option A. And Alfred is very fast. So, and he'll find anything, anywhere. Sometimes Alfred doesn't find something that Spotlight does and vice versa, so I figure why not have both. And that's free to download on the App Store. So that's another tool that I use that I love. A tool that I use all the time that I love is called Better Touch Tool. And what Better Touch Tool allows me to do, I think I paid $20 for it. It used to be free for the longest time, and then finally the guy was like, hey, I've got to make some money somehow. So what Better Touch Tool allows me to do is this, which was one of the only things I really liked when they launched the ability to split your screen in Windows, whatever it was. I was like, man, that's pretty cool. And be able to do half and half if you want. Yeah, I have not upgraded to Mojave. Don't yell at me. It won't go away. It won't let me forget. So this is really cool. If you like to multitask and still keep your proportions and such, Better Touch Tool is amazing. So
you're just grabbing a window and slamming it against one
Yep.
side of your screen, right?
Exactly.
And it snaps it to that half or quarter of the window.
Right.
Or a quarter of the screen.
Right. So love that. The touchpad gestures, like I have right click turned on. I really like that from my PC days. You don't have to, of course, but if you haven't played with your touchpad gestures, I suggest it. There's a few that I don't like this one. I don't know why there's a second desktop that I'm never going to use, and sometimes I accidentally go to it and it drives me nuts. So I should probably just shut that off, but no, I haven't. And but touchpad gestures are cool. And then I use the screenshot all the time. I beta test some different softwares for companies, so I'm constantly needing to do screen. I use QuickTime Player. I don't know if you've ever done a video recording of what you're doing on the screen and talk while you're doing it. I do that very often. I also do screenshots a lot, so that's Shift Command 4, and I can say I want to take a screenshot of this, and then it saves, and then I might send that off to somebody for something. So I use that feature all the time. Those are, any questions about any of those? Had anybody heard? Yeah, go ahead.
Can you change the resolution on a screenshot?
I don't think so.
Probably.
I mean,
Probably
If you
because
have-
you,
If you have a Retina display Macro Pro, say,
and
when you take a screenshot, are you getting like a 1080p image?
That's a good question.
yeah, it's a great question. My guess is no. My guess is that you're getting a compressed version, even if you're using a Retina, and that when you open it elsewhere, it will not degrade.
Can you edit it and modify with some of the tricks you just showed us with color saturation and contrast and so forth.
The
Do you do
screenshot?
that, the screenshot?
Sure, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
the same way that I just did, for sure. However, the way that I was able to do what I just did with Katie, the main reason I was able to do any of that is because I took it with a raw, that's a raw file. Raw meaning that the amount of information, that 25 megabyte file that the sensor in my camera is what, this big, let's say? The sensor in your cell phone is like this big. The amount of information that that sensor captured for me to be able to make these changes is immense. I have accidentally shot, and we all know JPEG, right? I've accidentally shot certain parts of a wedding day in JPEG. Sometimes you can change that setting in your camera by accident. And to edit those images is much more difficult because, I'll put it in perspective for you. This temperature slider here is white balance. So if you know anything about photography at all, you know there's white balance. You can shoot auto, you can shoot many different things. If I shoot an image in RAW, I can go all the way up to 50,000 on my yellow and all the way down to 2,000 on my blue, okay? If I shoot a JPEG image, I'm pretty sure the max is 50 and the lowest is, I don't even remember. I have far less information to work with. So the reason I'm able to do all this is because I have so much information. So to answer your question, if I brought that screenshot in here right now and tried to do something with it, I mean, sure, I could do some stuff, but it would be very limited in how.
Yeah, you could tune it, but you couldn't fine tune it.
There you go. That's a good way to put it.
Jim, I think there's a way of adjusting the resolution and the quality of a screenshot.
Well, a screenshot comes with a PNG suffix on it,
Mm-hmm.
and then I usually convert it to a JPEG,
Yeah.
Sure. And
mostly to upload it to Facebook or something like that,
where do you convert it? What do you use?
just as a save as.
You just save as?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, all right.
But within Lightroom or some other, or a less powerful editor, when you make that conversion and you do the save as, some software will have an option where you could change the resolution
Right.
during that save as process,
Oh,
so that you
okay.
could make it a smaller file size, for example.
Preview, I think, could do that.
Yeah, I don't, I never, like, when you first buy this, iPhoto automatically opens when you put a memory card in. I shut that off immediately. I don't even look at a lot of the built-in stuff because I use Lightroom for everything. And Photoshop, what I use the majority of it for, we create Christmas card designs. So I do a lot of Christmas card designing in Photoshop, which really some graphic designers would argue that InDesign would be the better software for that, but I'm just teach an old dog new tricks. I'm fast at doing it in here. I learned it in here. That's just what I do. But there's always multiple ways to do things. Another thing that I do in Photoshop that you cannot do very easily in Lightroom is here is an image of this family. You see his head is cut off. Whoops. But this dog is over here, which is nice. And if you look at this image that was taken right before it, I didn't cut his head off, but the dog is not in. So I don't do this super often, but I can take the dog from this image and I can drop him into this image pretty quickly. And you can't do that in Lightroom. I don't, in Photoshop, this would be where when people joke and say, hey, can you make me 20 pounds lighter? Yes, I could. And this is where I would do that. But that's a lot of work that I'm not interested in doing. And so I don't. But this is one of the kinds of things that I would do in Photoshop.
What do you send to the customer? JPEGs?
Yes, yep. So we work in a lot of different ways because we are all about tangible print. That is what people come to us for. People don't really come to us so much for the digital. They do want the digital, but the way that we work is any print that you purchase with us, so if you buy a 5x7, an 8x10, a 20x30, whatever, you get the corresponding digital image file in that size. So if you buy 10 5x7 images, I'm going to give you those 10 images in 5x7 resolution. So you've got them for archival sake, so you can reprint them if you need to, so you can share them on social media, put it as your phone background, etc. And then if you get a big 70x40 for your wall, you're going to get that image at a high resolution. So God forbid, should you need it for archival purposes, you have it. But everything is JPEG. I never show, there are many photographers who show their raw images totally unedited. I cringe, it gives me goosebumps. I would never, I couldn't even imagine. I just showed you guys that one. but I don't do that. Some photographers say, it saves me so much time. Then people just say, I like that one, then I only edit the ones that they like. But I choose what I believe that it's my job to say, these were the best images that we took, and this was my ability to create the best art that I could, and we go from there. So, but JPEG, yes. Yes.
What was the name of the program where you could move all these programs around?
Better Touch Tool, the one that allows me to do this.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, see, there's that silly.
If you, as you grow
Yes.
and you do more and more and more business,
Mm-hmm.
what do you hire people for? Do you hire photographers or do you hire editing people?
Super great question. The first person I hired was this time last year, Edie, our assistant, because I realized no way am I going to be able to do everything I'm doing plus all the ordering. So I taught her first, the easiest thing for me to take off my plate was, here's how you place an order. So I've got different labs over the past 8 to 10 years. I've ordered albums from many places. We have handmade wooden little boxes we put USBs in. We have prints. We have a lot of things. And I've got a few different choice labs that I use for these things. So I taught her the process of how to order each of these things. And then very slowly I started training her on how to design an album, how to use Photoshop for very simple edits. So little by little. And then she also does a lot of personal assistant type stuff for me. Like, please, could you just go to the post office? And sometimes I have 3 things that we keep saying, we've got to get to the store and return that, or we've got to, whatever. And she's really just kind of turned into also, and she loves that, which is really nice. She's very efficient at it too. The next thing, which really should have happened yesterday as far as I'm concerned, is an editor. So I need to be out there shaking hands and meeting people and finding and getting the good word out there of what we do and finding these clients who want to work with us. Being behind the computer editing does not energize me. I'm energized by people. And while I am very good at this, by no means your most efficient editor. It takes me quite a while to edit something. I know a lot of people who are a lot more efficient than I am, but this is like my baby, and it's hard to let go and say, somebody else is capable of recreating the thing. Maybe they won't do exactly what you did, but if they can get it to 95%, I can do the 5% instead of doing 100%.
Can they do it if they haven't been at the shoot?
Yes, absolutely. So what I'm actually doing right now, there are a lot of companies out there that you can pay them X amount of cents per image to cull for you, to do the selection process, as well as the editing process, like toning the image. Toning meaning it comes in looking dark and blah, 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 and then I make it look light, bright, airy, organic. And then from there we make micro adjustments. I've used a few of them and I've just not been happy with the results completely. So I think I need to loosen up a little bit and say, okay, it's not going to be perfect, but take what I can get kind of thing. Even if they weren't at the shoot, what I'm doing now is I'm doing the culling, I'm doing the selection process, and then I edit the first 5 to 20, depending on if it's a family shoot or a wedding, photos. Then I send it to them and I say, based on how I've edited these 5 images in these different lighting situations, I need you to mimic that, synchronizing the settings and all that kind of stuff. There's a whole thing about how to share a Lightroom catalog. If you could just, if I have somebody local, I can just plug in their hard drive and put it onto their hard drive. If I'm not, then I've got to export and upload. And so there are still some technicalities to be figured out, but that's the next thing. I just started outsourcing retouching. So if I do a family shoot or any shoot in general, and they see these are my 20 favorites, but hey, for those 2, could you remove that person in the background and fix the bags under my eyes or whatever it is? I used to do all of that editing, and now I've started those ones I send off to somebody, and you can send them off for a couple bucks per image and say, could you please get rid of the person in the background and smooth their face or whatever it is. And those people are a lot faster and honestly better at it than I am, probably.
What country are they going to?
That's a great question. I have no idea. I have no idea. My images are just out there, but go ahead.
If you had 1,500 pictures, how many did you show to the client?
That's a super
Because
question.
I could take 1,500 on a Safari,
Yep.
and I cannot figure out how to get it down for 600.
Well, I'd be happy to help you with that. I've had to perfect my eye, kind of, and I'm still not strict enough with myself, I think, sometimes. But I think, let me go weddings first. So weddings, we take probably about 3,000 to 5,000 on an average 8-hour day. In my first call, I get it down to no more than 1,500, so between 1,000 and 1,500. And then I usually deliver between 800 and 1,000
To the client.
to the client. So about 100 images per hour is what that comes out to. Depends on how big their families are, like how many family formals did we do. Some people want a picture with Aunt Jane, Uncle Bob, and Aunt Jane, you know, that whole thing. And some people are like, just do one big family shot and be done with it. So there are these kind of intricacies of each day. A family shoot, let's say for an hour, which I'm basically at the point now I'm super efficient on family shoots. We are very efficient on family shoots. If we do, I don't need a full hour unless it's 8+ people. I can easily do fewer than 8 people in half an hour, like no problem. In 1 hour though, let's say we do a lot of these multi-generational extended sessions, you know, with 10+ people. So like this shoot with this family, I don't know, we probably took it an hour, like 1,200 images between the two of us or so. And on my first call, I probably got it down to 200 to 300. And then I don't think I've ever shown more than 100. And one thing that my mentor taught me, he is less is more, big time, one of my mentors I should say, he said, never show them more than 30 images. For a group of this size, you gotta show more than 30, because there's, just in their small groups of posed images, there's gonna be close to 30. And we do a lot of that candid, you know, mom's hand holding the kid's toe, and you know, there's this whole, so, but I do have to be selective, and so in the family process, I typically end up showing, and I can just show you this real quick, I've got it. And yes, I do use Google Chrome, I do not use Safari, I'm sorry. If that offends anybody. I thought I had this open, but I guess I don't. I guess I closed it by accident. This is the software, this is an online software. This is for professionals to show, when I go to show a client their work. The first thing I do when they come in for the viewing session is I show them a little slideshow. So this one's 2 minutes long, I won't show you the whole thing, but you can just get a really quick idea of what it's stop music. And we go through and they ooh and they ah and they love it and it's wonderful, and we get to the end of the 2 minutes and I say, okay, great, now we've seen a good idea of what these images look like. Let's go through them slowly and decide what do we love, what do we not love, what do we want to do with them. So I bring them into this software that I use and we go through the culling process together and I say, okay, so we are gonna yay, nay, maybe. Those are your options. I want a gut instinct reaction. Do you like this image? Do you not like this image? Okay, ready, go. And you'll see that with this family, I already did it, obviously. So down here on the bottom, that's how it's obvious. You've got smiley faces and the number 14. So they selected 14 images that they loved, and then 18 that they decided they could live without. And then I can filter amongst the ones that they chose. We can look at them. We can say, oh, well, these are kind of similar. Maybe I want to look at these two next to each other. Do I want to choose one or keep both? We can zoom in and do some cropping in here as well. And then this is where they might say, hey, can you smooth my eyes right here? Or can you know, all these things. And I've got an order form with me in the gallery. I'm projecting this using an Apple TV. So I've got the laptop in my lap. I've got it wirelessly going to the Apple TV, which is going to connect to my projector, which is in the ceiling. That's why I was going to bring it today, and then last night he was like, that's like hardwired to the ceiling. I'm not taking that out. I was like, oh, okay, sorry.
Ours looks a lot like this, with the Epson attached to the ceiling, except we're broadcasting to it wirely via the Apple TV, which means I've got all the cables snaked up into the drop ceiling, and I thought, we're not taking that with us. Can't do it. I love you, but.
Yeah, no. So that's really fun. It's never failed me. It's been really impressive. I literally just use this, and it says Apple TV because we're on the same Wi-Fi network. It goes right on straight to it, 1080p, it's beautiful, 100-inch projection screen that is attached to the walls, and I've got a screen that comes down. And then I sit there with my order form, and as they speak, I listen and I take my notes, and then we go through and review, and they place their order, and then from there, there's this whole retouching and back and forth process.
So one of the things I think that really helps us get the number of images down, you're talking about taking 1,500 images on Safari and you can't get under 600, just for example. Well, imagine that you were looking through the images trying to decide which ones you were going to print. Well, you're not going to print all 600 of those. Okay, so now, okay, so 5x7s, well, those are pretty inexpensive. Maybe you're still going to print 100 of them. Okay, but now let's talk about printing them as 20 by 30 canvases. Okay, so depending on how much those cost, let's maybe down to 3 to 5 of those, and all of a sudden the process gets a lot easier.
For me,
because you've got a target, you got a goal.
For me, a big thing, and I can't wait to go on my first safari, so I'd love to see your images. But with people, again, what we specialize in, we've done real estate and we've done other things, and it's sort of similar, but with people it works really well. Do I feel something? I mean, every time I know if I feel something in that image, I go, yep, that's a winner. And that's how I choose, for example, with weddings, I always share with them teasers within the first week to hold them over, because it takes 4 to 6 weeks for them to get their whole gallery. So this is one that we shot last month, and this is their teaser gallery.
Millie,
Yeah.
we have to stop very soon.
Okay, got it. So anyway, so as we go through, these are the images that sometimes I might have selected this one because I knew she really wanted this picture on the stairs. I knew that that was important to her with her train coming down. But I chose this one because how could you not look at that dog's face? Does that not just make you so happy? And you know, this one, gosh, that sun flare is just so cool. And you know, so I decide if something makes me feel something, like, look, that's just, how cool is that? They just look like models, you know, I don't know. So that's how I choose. Like this picture right here, I could stare at the, when we took this picture, Matt, you gotta look at this picture. I could stare at this image all day. The composition of it for me is really pleasing. So again, if I focus on the things that I love and I edit it the way that makes me happy, it attracts the people who also like that style. So that would be my recommendation. So anyway, we have to stop. I'm sorry that we went over, but the long and short of this is obviously we do weddings and all these things. However, we are both educators as well. So we do private classes for photography, and we will eventually do group classes at the gallery as well, which we're excited to start at some point. We'll see when that is. May not be next year, maybe a year after, but at some point. But we do private now, so if you've got any interest, please let us know. Our cards are up here. Do we have to get out of this room immediately? Is that the deal? Does this room get to use?
No, we got a few minutes.
Okay, so I put together just a very small survey, and this is the QR code for it, or that's the link. It's like 5 questions, just basic feedback from today's session. And then if you want to be added to our email list, you can put your email address, and also if I get that back and you'd like to use a $100 credit toward you know, some sort of a mentoring private session or a photo shoot or product or something, I would be happy to extend that to you guys today. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.